This is chapter 12 on inequality of education. This is video number 2. So we finished off by talking about different types of schools and in different ways that schools can be run. Now let's look at the 3 sociological perspectives and how they evaluate education inequality. So the first is functionalism. Functionalism looks at that society is a system of interrelated parts. So each part of society is dependent upon the other. And if there's a change in one, that there is a change in all the rest of them. It's kind of like a domino effect. Education, the education system in culture or in a society is huge. It affects all other parts. Think about the things that people learn when they're in the school system and how that can impact the economy, how that impacts the family system, how that affects our government and our leaders and the people who are running our country. Education is a big deal to our society. But in sociology, it would also look at the functions. What are the functions of education? And there's manifest functions and there's latent functions. Remember, manifest functions are functions that are intended or planned. These are the things that we knew that the education system would do, and this was the purpose of it. So it's the transmission of culture. Remember when we were talking in the video number 1 in the very beginning, that the whole purpose of the public school system was so that way our children grew up to be functional people in society. They're not just to tame them down, that they're not wild animals, okay? It transmits our culture. We teach young people what they need to be successful in our society and a person that can participate in our culture. So not only do they learn about patriotism and our culture's history and our country's history, but other things such as even behaviors that we find important in our culture, being patient, raising your hand, waiting your turn, that is transmission of culture. The school system also facilitates integration or a shared identity. It creates similar values, norms, beliefs, and attitudes. Children are taught what is important and what is valuable. Think about reading, language, our national history, again, patriotism. It creates this cohesion, what brings us and holds us together. That is an important function of education. The school system also does screening and identifies talents or skills. Students are identified the ones that are bright or have something that they're super good at, and it improves I apologize for that. That was actually my children's school calling on the phone. So I got a little sidetracked. But the school system it also identifies talent and skills. Test scores are used to group students by ability. There's different, I know that even in my kids' school that they have different activities that target and show the children's strengths and weaknesses. Also, school counselors see it as an obligation to make sure that students pursue a career that's consistent with their abilities. Students are tracked into different jobs based upon their skill level, based upon how they do on standardized tests. They may do, like a career cruising, where based upon your likes and your dislikes and your abilities, you're put into different tracks, whether you're going to go more the vocational technical education or career in tech, or if you're going to go more of a four-year college route, yes. School systems promote personal growth and development. They expose students to a variety of experiences and perspectives. And the last thing that, of course, the school does is it increases knowledge. Schools create and discover new sources of knowledge and preserve and pass along knowledge to future generations. So what are the latent functions? Latent, remember, is unrecognized or unintended functions. Well, number one thing I'm realizing right now is that schools provide daycare. It's a place where kids go every day from basically 7 or 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And it allows parents to go and do things like work. Can you imagine what it would be if kids weren't in school? We're all experiencing right now, because I'm filming this during the coronavirus outbreak or pandemic. But it's also a place where people find marriage partners. There's a lot of people that do a lot of dating when they're in school. You might find the person that you're going to marry, or you identify what you like and what you don't like in a partner. It's a training ground for athletes. I mean, that's where kids may get their first experience of playing a sport and learning what they're good at. And basically, it's training on how to live in a bureaucratized society. So remember, a bureaucracy is a system of efficiency and people specializing in things. And that basically is what a school system is. It's set up where, teachers teach very specific things. Think about your high schools, where you have some teachers that teach science, some that teach English. In the K through 8th grade, actually K through probably 5th grade, it's not that way. Most of the teachers teach everything. But by the time they get to the high school, it becomes even more bureaucratized, where people have roles and things that they teach. So the school system prepares students for that is what the world is like, and those are the types of organizations that our society prefers. So let's move along to conflict theory. Remember, conflict theory looks at societies and groups that have different access to resources. And based upon that difference and observing the inequality between different groups, conflict arises. And we hope that the outcome from the conflict is more equality and more rights and more equal rights and less inequality. So, of course, conflict theory is looking at the education system as a mechanism for perpetuating the social class structure. So it's seeing that what our education system is actually doing is perpetuating inequality and keeping our social class structure, where we have a lot of wealthy people, or a few wealthy people at the top and a lot more people at the bottom who are not making as much money. So we have in our country something called a perceived meritocracy. A meritocracy is meant that the harder you work, the better you'll do, and you'll have more success in life and more money and more wealth. But that is a perceived meritocracy, because school systems are not the same for all social classes, and students do not have an equal starting point. Depending upon where you live, your school systems are better. Our school funding situation here in the United States is all based upon mostly property taxes. So schools that are in affluent neighborhoods, really wealthy places, have better school systems. Schools that are in low income neighborhoods or very urban areas have really bad school systems, not a lot of resources. They don't have the newest Chromebooks. They don't have the best resources for their students. They don't even get the best teachers, because the teachers aren't able to be paid as much. Status is based upon ability and achievement, and that just doesn't happen, okay? So we have something called a perceived meritocracy. A meritocracy is a social status is based on ability and achievement. And that's based on the assumption that all individuals have an equal chance to succeed and better themselves. If you work hard enough, you can achieve anything. And we know that's not true, because not everybody has equal access to everything. Because when you're going to a school system or your family has more resources, it's a lot easier for you to do things. Well, then we have this term of competition. Competition is a social process that occurs when rewards are given to people on their basis of how their performance compared with the performances of others doing the same task. So it's leading to our next topic is college entrance exams. They are supposed to be a standardized exam that will be basically a predictor of how well you're going to do in college and how successful and how smart you are. But depending upon your preparation that you're able to do, for example, if your family can afford or you go to a school where they have ACT and SAT prep exams, they're helping you get ahead and helping you get a better score. If you're going to a high school that's in a better area where it's preparing you for college and they have a lot of funding, have really good teachers that they're able to pay well you're going to do better and you're going to be able to be more successful in school because of those things. And studies have shown in college entrance exams that social class affects SAT performance because the quality of schools is not equal. So let's think about who writes standardized tests. Who decides what ends up on standardized tests? What is important? What is covered? Think about even what names are used whenever they're writing math problems, word problems. Are they using names like Dick, Jane, Bob, Smith, or do they use more ethnic names? That you think that doesn't really mean anything, but when you're developing these standardized tests, you must account for all those who might be taking the test. Okay? If you're using it as a basis to grade everyone on, then you need to include everyone whenever you're writing these things. So it creates something called educational inequality. It addresses the effects of schooling. When schooling does not produce the same results for lower class and minority children as it does for other children. It's about results and not looking at the resources available to these students. So, what affects education inequality? Teachers have an impact on inequality. When teachers teach students differently, I know, and I'm not trying to pick on school teachers, they do a fantastic job, but sometimes it just happens where children are treated differently, either based upon their skin color, based upon their ability. Teachers can have a big impact. Teachers have the best intentions, but they often evaluate students' potential based upon their class, their backgrounds, their racial characteristics, and ethnic heritage. It's when, unbeknownst to the teacher, they bring prejudice and bias into the classroom. So think about in your high school. I know when I went to high school, students were placed into tracks based upon their abilities. And it's heavily influenced by their social class and their race. What side of the tracks did this family come from? It's been shown through research that school counselors more push students who are from better families into the higher education track, the four-year college track, and other students into more vocational or preparing them for the workforce. So, in a lot of tests, standardized tests and regular tests in the school system are based upon cognitive ability or the ability to think abstractly. It's trying to say that genetic differences are a determining factor for success. Social scientists argue that genetic differences in intelligence do not consider the effects of social, psychological, and economic climate. Intelligence is a matter of genetics and environment. There is not one cause. Cultural bias in the measure of cognitive ability is not okay. Who are the tests written for? Who administers the test? Think about students whenever they take these tests. Have they had a good breakfast before the day of the test? Intelligence comes down to a lot of things and not just your ability to do a problem.